أوكي، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. We are in the right place, right? I'm teaching this book to a number of people. I'm just concerned that pretty sure we're here. Okay, yeah, Rab. So it's conditions for the Surah Al-Fatiha. Number one, sequence. So what's the opposite of sequence? What's the opposite of doing that?
Like randomness?
Randomness. You just do Fatiha in random order, right? Disorder, right? Uh, Opposite sequence, one of that. Continuity. So here, I'm not quite sure. Musa, you have the sharh there, perhaps. It has continuity, and then it says number 5, you don't pause. I don't know what the difference is really between these two.
Yeah, let me read it real quick. I'll look into it.
I think they're kind of basically the same idea. So continuity, what if you pause for a long time? So he's going to mention at point 5, he says you could pause, so it will be broken for 2 pauses. You could pause, like you're doing this ritual, right? We're just trying to describe like how is this ritual broken, right? You're doing this ritual called the Fatiha. If you now break up the Fatiha, 1 second, please. Sorry. So this is ritual. You're basically breaking this ritual by not doing it properly. So we're going to say, look, when you do the Fatiha, what did you do? Oh, I paused for 20 minutes in the middle of the Fatiha. Are you joking me? Right? Are you kidding me? Like, what are you talking about? So this person stops in the middle. You can't do that. Okay, what if I stopped for a short time? So it says here, you stopped for a short time with the intention of termination. So you were doing the Fatiha, and then you stopped to do, for example, another surah because you thought that you had already done the Fatiha. And then you realized, no, 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 I hadn't. Right? So then you went back again. So the fact that you stopped with the intention of stopping, even if it's short, that breaks the ritual. You have to start that ritual of the Fatiha again. So anyway, so breaking it, so continuity, unless it's for the interest of the prayer. So for example, you are reciting your Fatiha. You are reciting your Fatiha, and the Imam finishes his. So he says, غَيْرِ مَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. So now you're supposed to say Ameen, but you're in the middle of your Fatiha. Will it break your Fatiha? Yeah, no, it will not. Similarly, if you correct the Imam, he makes a mistake. If while you're reciting the Fatiha, you correct the Imam, that's fine. As opposed to you're doing the Fatiha surah, you're doing the Fatiha, in the middle of the Fatiha, you said, I'm going to say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah 1,000 times in the middle of the Fatiha, right? You've broken the continuity of the Fatiha. So to perfect its letters, what does that mean? Tajweed. So it has to be perfect tajweed. If you're not Sheikh Abdul Basit, you're not allowed to pray. What is it? What do you mean by that?
It has to be, I think, accurate to the point where all the meanings are correct.
Okay, so you can't make a mistake in the harakat that would change the meaning. But if it wouldn't change the meaning, it doesn't matter. If you said, for example, nista'in doesn't change the meaning. It's just incorrect. Okay. And then with the huruf, you don't add letters or subtract letters or change letters such that they sound closer to other letters. Okay. Notice that concept, such that. Okay. So what does it mean? It means that what if you did change it, but it wasn't such that it sounded close to another letter? Like your ra was not a perfect ra, your lam was not a perfect lam, your kha was not a perfect kha. It sounded closer to a kha than sound something to else. I'm just trying to think. Trying to think of an example. Yeah, like ta, right? So there's in tajweed they talk about how much breath, how much air there should be in the ta, right? So if you hear, for example, like Moroccans will pronounce that anta, like it sounds like a symbol. They have lots of air in it. There's a kind of a gap. So that's actually that's not good tajweed. But you said enter, like how much gap there was and how much air. It's okay. Like it's closer to a T than anything else, right? So it's a T, it's a ta. It's like yeah, it's not a dal, right? That's good enough. Or I'm trying to think. Anyway, the point is, it doesn't have to be perfect. There is such thing as a perfect letter, and it's like, yeah, it's close enough. Okay, rolling your R's, right? Bismillahir-Rahman is fine. Hir-Rahman, Hir-Rahman. If you say Hir-Rahman, that's problematic, right? Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, that's problematic. But so you did a small. So the thing is basically the ra, it does roll, but it doesn't roll too much. So when you say so notice different. This is English. Red, red. So my English R and my Arabic R are not the same. And then if I roll it a little bit, it's still like off, but it's slightly different. It's all good enough. Like that's a ra. Like that's good enough, right? So it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Meaning you don't add letters. Iyyaka na'budu. You added a vowel, right? You can't do that. You can't change meaning. An'amtu, an'amti. You're changing the meaning. You can't do that. Okay, to perfect is tashdidat. What does that mean? Guys, is everybody asleep today? I'm half asleep.
Sheikh, I'm listening to you. Sorry.
I don't want you to listen to me. I want to listen to you. I want you to tell me.
Okay, sorry, Sheikh. Could you repeat that once
I
more?
I want you to
Yeah.
explain this to me. I'm asking you, what does this mean? To perfect is tashdidat. What does that mean? Sheikh Muhyiddin, Sheikh Musa, Ubaid, Walabisi, Salahuddin. 99% of you have done all of this before.
Basically, to pronounce all the shadda that is present
Exactly.
in.
So if I drop the shadda, what would I actually be doing? I would be dropping one of its letters, right?
Yes.
Right. So Ar-Rahman. It's not Ar-Rahman, it's Ar-Rahman. Right? Bismillahir-Rahman. Two Ra's. You drop one of the shaddas, you drop a Ra. So you cannot do that. So what does it mean practically? We have to sit down with a tajweed teacher, sit down with a friend who's got a good tajweed and say, listen, bro, I need to do my Fatiha with you. Okay? Make sure that's straightened out. Not to pause, we did this, number 5. And number 6, to recite all of its verses, including the Basmalah. Right? Whether you do it aloud or not, that's something else, but you have to say the Basmalah. You have to say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Not to make a mistake that alters meaning, we did that. To recite it while standing in the Fard prayer. To hear one's own recital. So I have to shout it. If I'm in a construction site, I have to shout it. Is that correct? Go ahead, Salahuddin.
In the Shafi'i method, we don't have to recite the Basmala out loud.
No, we don't have to recite anything out loud.
Even in like Fajr, Maghrib, and Isha.
Yeah, you don't have to do it out loud now.
Okay. Jazakallah khair.
Yeah, Jum'ah, you can do it quietly. So you're going to have everybody saying, Subhanallah, what's the guy doing? Right? But, like you're leading the prayer quietly. Nobody knows what you're doing. The prayer still counts, right? Here we're talking about the fard, right? Here we're talking about like, does the prayer count? We're not talking about how you should pray. Right? Okay, so here, to hear one's own recitation. So if I'm on a building, on a work site, there's construction happening, I have to shout the Fatiha, correct? So that I can make sure I at least hear myself.
Isn't it to the point where if there was no other noise, you would be able to hear yourself?
Thank you very much. Okay, and then he goes to the tashdidat. I'm not going to go through all of these things. So then he says, it is sunnah to raise your hands in 4 places. Bismillah, explain. Go ahead, Salahuddin.
So I just have another question about the Fatiha. So
Mhm.
if we're standing behind an Imam, we recite
Mhm.
it to ourselves while he's reciting it or after he is finished.
So in the Shafi school, you're just obliged to do it at some point. Before he does anything, while he's doing it, afterwards, you have to do it at some point. The sunnah, when in a salat jahriyah, when he does it aloud, is the following. He does the Fatiha, then he pauses and recites quietly to himself something for the time it would take for you to do the Fatiha, and then he starts reciting aloud again. So there's no time, if he's following the sunnah and you're following the sunnah, there should be no time where there's this kind of conflict, like you're trying to focus on the Fatiha, but you can hear him recite. Does that make sense? Now, but we live in we have to suffer the company of those non-Shafis, a'udhu billah, I'm just joking. And you're going to be with people who don't pause, right? So what does that mean? That it means you're going to have to do the Fatiha while he's doing a surah, or while he's doing the Fatiha, or before he does the Fatiha. Does that make sense?
Yep, Jazakallah khair.
Barakallahu feek. Okay, so Bismillah, who can explain this? Go ahead.
Oh, Afwan, I have a quick question.
Bismillah.
Oh, actually, let's explain and then I'll ask my question, inshallah. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead. So what is this talking about? It is sunnah to raise the hands.
Sunnah to raise the hands in 4 places itself. The initial, when you're starting the salah itself,
Okay.
when you're going into ruku', so as in
Yeah.
your hands raise as you're bowing,
Mm-hmm.
and then your hands raise as well and follow you up as you're standing as well from the ruku'.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the last one mentioned here is standing up from the first tashahhud itself. So as you're standing up as well, then your hands will follow and you raise your hands.
Good. So what about going into sujood?
Into sujood, according to this list, there is no
Yeah.
sunnah of raising the hands.
Okay. Okay. So we have these. These are the 4 reasons, and these are the only reasons here, right? And so how do we raise them? We raise them such that we're going to raise them such that your fingers are slightly apart, very slightly apart. Your fingers are slightly tilted forward, very slightly. You're not doing a claw, right? But just slightly tilted forward. Slightly apart. Your thumb is roughly in line with the bottom of your earlobe, and the fingers are roughly in line with the top of the earlobe, right? And I say roughly because similarly, we're going to say the palm is roughly in line with the shoulder. So, well, that's not really going to happen, is it? How is that exactly going to be? It's not exact, but roughly, your palm is roughly in line with your shoulders, and your thumb is roughly in line with the bottom of your ear, and your fingers are roughly in line with the tops of your ears, right? Okay, does that make sense?
Yes. Quick question, if I may.
Just checking everyone else is good. Olabisi, Salahuddin, Faisal, Muhyiddin, yep. We're good? Okay, go ahead, Musa.
For let's say one is a Shafi'i Imam, pause in between from the Fatiha to the next surah. The Imam can recite either like Quran or Adhkar or Dua, right?
That is
Okay.
correct, yeah. And he just does it quietly to himself, yeah. So it's interesting, like it sounds like a kind of like a Shafi bid'ah to try and explain something, but it's actually there's a hadith, to that effect that the Prophet ﷺ had saktatan, he had two silences in the prayer. One at the beginning of the prayer, one after the Fatiha. And so you would assume that there'll be a similar length. And so if you think about that pause at the beginning of the prayer, right, to say the opening dua, it's roughly the same time to do as do the Fatiha. I mean, depending what dua you make, right? So that seems like that's what he'd actually do. Like there's actually a kind of a pause there, Allahu A'lam, for that much time. Okay. We had promised Muhammad Kazmi that we're going to go through the Fatiha today, but I don't think we're not going to do it because he's not here. So khair. We'll do it next week, inshallah. Okay, conditions of prostration. Bismillah. Sheikh Muhyiddin.
Yes, Sheikh.
اشرح.
Uh,
ما أنا بشارح.
yeah, thank you very much. This took it right out of my heart, not my mouth.
You can try though. You can try though. Bismillah. Have a go. What do you understand from this?
To prostrate upon I'm just starting from the first condition to prostrate upon 7 limbs.
Mm-hmm. So what does that mean to you?
I think it's pretty straightforward, right? And that's just, and then you just would list out the 7 limbs and kind of how you're mentioning.
So what are the 7 things?
Oh yes. Oh, the 7 limbs would be your forehead. So sorry, I missed last week's class. I think you touched on it. I was just watching the recording.
We did not do this last week, but I think we did it before in another class.
Okay. Oh, maybe, but well, I wouldn't have. This is my first class with you.
Okay, no worries. What do you understand from it? What do you understand from it?
That there are 7 limbs I have to prostrate upon, and then I just have to list them out.
Okay. What do you think they are? Let's guess.
Oh no, if I'm guessing, then I haven't been praying for the last God knows how many years. Forehead, my palms, my knees, and my toes.
Your toes. All of your toes.
At least one.
At least one toe has to be bent back. Okay. This is the position of Imam An-Nawawi. Okay.
Right.
This is the position of Imam An-Nawawi. So according to Imam An-Nawawi, his tarjih is you have to have 7 limbs on the ground. Okay. If you don't have your hands, your knees, and your toes, at least one toe bent back on each foot, then khalas, you haven't done sujood. That's not, you haven't prayed. You haven't done sujood, and therefore you have not prayed and go into qada. Okay, that's Imam Nawawi's position. Imam Rafi'i's position is no. That's not true. The sujood only has to be done on your forehead. So theoretically, I actually told my kids this. I said I give them 10 ringgits, 10 Malaysian ringgits, if they could balance on their forehead, right? Then nobody managed to do it. They didn't get the money. So theoretically, if you can just balance on your forehead, right? Like with your hands not touching the floor, your knees not touching the floor, and your toes not touching the floor, it's fine, right? So this is a very useful rukhsa because a lot of people don't bend their toes back. People don't do things properly, right? So it is a useful rukhsa, and it's a strong rukhsa. It's not something like weak. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, that the forehead be exposed. What does that mean? Anybody?
Your skin has to make contact.
Skin has to make contact. So practical. So how could this practically be problematic? For who? Niqabis, those niqabis, right? And their clandestine ninja activity, right? So niqabi, it's fine, sister. You cover in front of men, but the issue is when you go to sujood, you have to pick your hijab and niqab up. Unless you can open that have that slit, right? That little slit, like they open it, push it so that some of the skin of the forehead can touch the floor, fine. But otherwise, you have to lift it up, right? That's number 1. Who else? What about someone's wearing a hoodie, right? Does anybody wear Moroccan clothes? Anybody's a Jedi fan?
I bought a couple when I visited.
You got it right. Yeah. Did you get the free lightsaber? That didn't come with it.
No, that was extra, and I was trying to buy just more of the just the robes, basically.
Alhamdulillah. So anyway, you go into sujood with your Moroccan hood on, okay? Or you have a hoodie on or something like that, right? You go into sujood, it's quite likely that the top of that hood can actually kind of wrap around your forehead, right? And now your forehead is totally covered, right? So you should be careful. Okay, what else? Something else. What about a turban? Right, someone has a turban and it's kind of tilted down such that when they go into sujood, it basically goes from their nose to the turban and the skin doesn't touch the floor, right? And I gave, there's a debate here. Where is it? Number 5. I'll explain that in a second. Okay, so number 1 so the forehead should be exposed. So the hands do not need to be exposed, right? The knees do not need to be exposed. The toes do not need to be exposed. But the forehead, the skin of the forehead has touched the ground. And the nose does not have to touch the ground either, right? The ikhtiyar of Imam Nawawi's personal position, it is obligatory. His own, not his, what's it called? You know, when we say ikhtiyar, we're trying to say like his independent personal opinion, not what he's saying what the madhab is. He said you're obliged to put the nose on the floor, right? So we should be careful about the nose, but you know, the nose by default does not need to be on the ground. Okay, to make sajda by resting the head. What does that mean? Go ahead, Sheikh Ubaid.
I was just wondering, so what's the minimum that the forehead must be revealed?
Just some part of it. I mean, it's not a flat surface, right? So if you can imagine you putting a curved surface on a flat surface, then it's going to be what, in principle, you know, 1 over infinity that's touching the ground, right? But you know, practically some of it, you know.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, to make so you have to smash your head on the floor, right? Is that correct? Like you have to really try and push it really hard into the floor. To make your head. What's number 3 saying?
Just don't
Just
hover on the surface, Sheikh.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Exactly, right? So I'm doing sujood on grass, right? And it's kind of itchy. So I'm having my head just touch a blade of grass. That doesn't count. It has to rest on the floor, right? You rest, let your body rest. Your knees, everything rests, not just touching, right? So your forehead should rest on the floor, right? You don't have to push it into the floor or something like that, right? If it was a pillow, if you're doing sujood on a pillow, on a bed, on grass, then it would go in a bit, right? Okay, great. To not intend anything but sajda. I taught this to my kids yesterday or the day before. We had a lot of fun with this. So what happens here? That your niqabi ninja wife goes crazy on you while you're praying. She pulls out her, what's a ninja sword? I can't remember what they're called. My kids were all into ninjas they're like super
Katana?
into. No, not a katana. They don't have a katana. I think the ninjas have something else. Anyway, that'll do. She pulls out her katana. It's dangerous. So, and you duck and go into sujood. What happens? Shuriken. No, the shuriken is the little thing that. Okay, she throws a shuriken at you. There we go. And you duck. Okay, and you go into sujood. Right. All my kids talking about looking for their Pokemon cards underneath the. Is it called a? What's it called?
I think kunai.
Kunai. There we go. Okay. So obviously you know the right sisters, mashallah. Anyway, so the point is you're going down for other than that. So here's this concept, okay? Is do you need to intend each ritual inside the ritual that you're doing? Right? In theory, you'd imagine that, right? Actions are only by intention. So I'm like, okay, well, my sujood only counts as sujood if I intend sujood. So I have to be like, I am doing sujood in prayer, in fard of dhuhr, you know, and then I am lifting my head up, you know what I'm saying? But the answer is we don't have to do that, right? So basically, once you started with your niyyah at the beginning of the prayer, everything counts as prayer, right? Once you start with your niyyah in Hajj, right? You entered ihram for Hajj, khalas, everything is now Hajj. You don't have to intend, I am now at Arafah. You don't have to intend, I'm now doing tawaf. You don't have to intend that. But or wudu, right? Wudu, once you start making wudu, you don't have to intend that I'm now doing my arms. But if you start doing something else, you do. So now this person, they're making wudu and they start, for example, looking at something on their elbow. And then they're trying to see if they can feel something. So now they've done something else and they've gone off on a tangent for 10 minutes. Now, right, they have to refresh that niyyah because they were doing something else. Does that make sense? Similarly, like in prayer, the actions of prayer count as prayer unless you intend something else. So then he went down, right? you were doing sujood, you were praying, and then again, somebody attacked you. You, for some reason, you had to duck. For some reason, you had to go down, and your intention, you didn't intend to do sujood. You were trying to look for something under the couch. So that doesn't count as sujood, right? So you not intend anything but sajda by that. Same thing in tawaf. They're going to say there was a horse behind you. I mean, in the old days, it was literally like that, right? There's a horse behind you in tawaf, and you got a little bit too close, so you jerked forward, right? That doesn't count as tawaf because you're trying to get away from the horse. So you're gonna have to go away from the horse, take a few steps back, and then continue your tawaf because you went forward for something other than tawaf. So you don't have to intend tawaf, but when you step forward for something other than tawaf, you have to be careful to intend that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. You can guess number 6. The kids love that one as well, right? Number 6, like they were measuring things and everything. Anyway, kids fifth classes with the kids, it gets very exciting. But what's interesting is kids actually understand quite a lot of things. So what it means is fiqh, we can actually teach fiqh way younger than you imagine. Like the class that we have now, right? The average age is we're talking about, right? 20s and 30s, right? 20s, 30s, 40s, right? That we're all too old to do this. So the mind at you know the university mind, when you go to university, you're supposed to have all the facts that you need, right? So I don't know, for example, Olabisi, is she still studying at all, like actually learning things? But if you can imagine like the PhD mind, like you are trying to create knowledge, you are questioning premises, you are pushing the limits of things, right? Trying to think out of the box. That's a mind that we have at this age, 18, 19, 20 plus. There's before that, there's the grammar mind, which is just tell me facts, right? And I guess there's a stage before that as well. Like, let's say, for example, my daughter, she's like 7, 8. Like, she just wants to make sounds. So for her, like, if I start explaining a surah to her, she's like, Daddy, please just stop. Like, just want her to say the sound. She did just like sounds. Any kind of sounds is like it. Sound of a cat, sound of the Quran, sound of I don't know, Shakespeare. That's a kind of very, that memorization stage. So we have a problem is that we are doing educational activities that are designed for kids, like doing a class like this. This is a kid's book, right? Like kids can do this. I'm teaching it to like 7, 8-year-old, 9-year-olds and say, yeah, they get it, right? Because you're supposed to be way beyond this stage where you're now on. Rafi'i says this, Nawawi says this, who's right? The Shafi say this, the Hanbali say this, but like the thing is, our minds are on the level of what's called the rhetoric level, where we can like compare things and contrast and debate, but we don't actually have enough information in our head. It's like doing again. So like Sister Olabisi is like, oh, she's applying for this chemistry PhD. Like, do you know the periodic table? No. Reactivity? No, no idea. Displacement reaction? No idea. Moles, no idea. It's like she doesn't have the necessary information to do her PhD, because you don't have enough facts in your head. Does that make sense? So it's an important thing. So anyway, my kids had a lot of fun with number 6. So the point is basically, you can't do sujood on a wall. You can't do sujood on the floor, like flat on your face on the floor. So you're lying on the floor with your forehead on the floor, your hands on the floor, your knees are on the floor, your toes are bent back. That's not called sujood. Why? Because your behind is not above your head. It doesn't count, right? Similarly, you do a sujood against a wall. My head is against the wall, my hand is against the wall, my knees are against the wall, my toes are against the wall. Does it count? No, because your behind has to be above, like that. Okay, so you have to be in the sense that you are doing sujood, prostrate. Number 7, you have to remain motionless therein. You got to pause, right? Number 5, not to prostrate on something that moves with one's own movement. What does that mean? We kind of spoke about it in number 2.
Like if you have a scarf or like part of your clothing.
Okay. So what about a woman doing sujood on her own khimar? So we're not talking about she doesn't have anything on her head, but the issue is that her khimar comes down, let's say from under her chin, and then it goes down over her body, and then when she goes into sujood, she ends up doing sujood on it. Does that count?
I guess that would not be allowed.
That would not count. No. You're doing sujood on your own sleeves, right? You're doing sujood on your own sleeves, right? So then we have a debate between Ibn Hajar and Ramli, and this is so, guys. You gotta catch up with my grade 4 and 5's kids, okay? They have to research this for next week, okay? Actually, for today. So I guess you're gonna win. Is when you say it moves with your movement, do you mean actually or theoretically? Right. So here's this lady wearing a khimar. She turns right, she turns left. The khimar is moving around. Here's this guy with a turban. The tail of his turban moves when he moves his head, but he has an extremely long turban. The tail of his turban is 3 meters long. So when it's curled up in front of him and he does sujood on it, does that matter? Because if he moves his head, it's not going to move. So is it the idea that it's connected to him, or is it that it actually moves when he moves? Does that make sense?
It does.
So Musa can research it. I'm sure it's there in Nail al-Najah, right? There's a debate between Ibn Hajar and Ramli on this issue. Right? Khair. Okay. So the 7 limbs of prostration are the forehead, both palms, i.e. a part of both palms. That includes the fingers, the inside of the fingers. So like you just had one finger on the ground, the inside of one finger on the ground is fine. Both knees, right? A portion of the toes of each foot, i.e. a portion of the bent back toe of each foot. Okay? And then it goes to tashdidat, tashahhud. So again, tashahhud, we sit down with somebody who's good at tajweed and say, look, can you listen to my tashahhud? Is it correct or not? Right? Okie dokie, ya Rab. Okay, so then it's going to go through. Did we already do the tashahhud? I don't know what it was. Yeah, it's a minimal tashahhud here. And you can't read this either. So he has here the minimal tashahhud is at-tahiyyatu lillah. Salamun alayka. So you're not obliged to say assalamu alayka. So salamun alayka ayyuhan nabiyyu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Salamun alayna wa ala ibadillahi as-salihin. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Right? Abduhu wa Rasuluh. Abdu is not necessary to say that. Okay, that's your minimum tashahhud. Okay? At-tahiyyatu lillah. Wa-salawatu wa-tayyibat. That's extra. As-salam. You don't have to say as-salam. You can just say salam. That's fine. Salam or salamun alayka ayyuhan nabiyyu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alayna. Salamun alayna wa ala ibadillahi as-salihin. So here you can say salam or as-salam. With the actual salam, you have to say assalamu alaykum. You cannot say salamun alaykum. Right? You cannot just say salamu alaykum. You have to say assalamu alaykum. Okay? And then Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. That is now a key sunnah. If you miss Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, you should do sujood al-sahw. Right? So it's a very important thing to do, but it's not fard. It is fard. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. This is fard. Right? That is fard. So here it is tashdidat aqall salat. Allahumma salli. So Allahumma, right? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, right? That's the minimum. That's fard. Assalamu alaikum. End of prayer. But it is sunnah now to say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. So if you don't say wa ala alihi wa sahbihi, then it calls for sujood al-sahw, etc. The minimum is to say assalamu alaikum with the L. Assalamu alaikum. You cannot say assalamu alaikum. Okie dokie. Now we're going on to awqat al-salah. Bismillah. Who can explain? And this is a great thing to do with kids. Does anybody teach at Sunday school? No? No, everybody's Muhyiddin, you have kids, right?
The one, Sheikh,
What?
he's
He's
like 8 months old.
8 months old, mashallah.
Yeah, maybe I should start with him.
Yeah, start early, bro.
Yeah.
Do his his aqd nikah next week. You never know with people these days.
I mean,
You know.
if I hold him from his feet and then I just put his head on the ground, he can do the minimum sajda with just the
Yeah, the
forehead.
minimum
I suppose.
sajda.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
There you go.
Alhamdulillah. And you should be fasting today, right? Because it's going to be Tasu'ah. So tell him, Yalla, shid hilak.
Yeah. This one, Sheikh, I think it's tough. We'll do our best. Inshallah.
Well, he's probably nasty. That's the issue. When he's drinking, he's nasty. He says like, khalas.
Subhanallah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. Anyway, so this is a fun class. This is a really good class to do with grade 4, 5. I don't know if grade 3 can do it. Not sure. But grade 4, grade 5, this is quite a good class. They're doing earth science. You can do all these things. It's great. So Bismillah, who can explain this? So I did this with a football and a torch. It's great. You can move move the torch around the football and you can see the different angles of light. Obviously, you can't see the sunset and things like that. But okay. Bismillah. Who can explain? Come on, guys. Muhyiddin is excused. Okay, he's traumatized by his son. Woke up 20,000 times last night. Sheikh Hamid, you're excused. Salahuddin, you're not excused. Olabisi, you're not excused. Ubaid, you're not excused. Musa, you're not excused. So at least 4 of you can explain this.
The time for dhuhr begins after the sun after the sun descends from its zenith, plus whatever is accounted for because of the axis of the earth.
Okay.
So
I'm standing in my garden. I'm in the southern hemisphere, right? I'm here in Malaysia in the southern hemisphere. How do I know when it's dhuhr? I mean, how would I know when it's the zenith?
when the sun is at its highest point of the day.
Okay. Okay. So, but as a practical thing, it's kind of not super easy to do that. But let's say I had a stick. I actually have a stick.
Okay, yes.
I have not a shepherd stick, but like a farmer stick that I use for my animals. Not to hit them out of it, just like guide them around. So I have this stick. This stick is 4 foot tall. Okay. So obviously at dawn, the shadow of the stick is going to be infinite, right? It's just the longest thing possible. As the sun gets higher and higher, what happens to the length of the shadow?
It begins to decrease.
It becomes to decrease. So based on the length of the shadow, when will I know that it is noon?
When it starts increasing again.
Once it starts to increase, once it starts to grow again, yes.
So it starts to grow again. So basically I'm watching it, it's like, oh, it's really long. And then it's getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And again, with the kids, you can do this. Every hour, put a stone at the end of the shadow. Oh, it moved. Now what's going to happen is at noon, it's going to get harder and harder because it's going to be moving slower, right? It's actually going to get slower and slower and slower. It's going to be quite hard, particularly if you're quite close to the, like where I'm in Malaysia, quite close to the equator, right? It's going to get harder because it's going to be moving slower and slower. But there's a certain point, if you just keep following it, it'll be like, it's got bigger now. Aha, that means like 5-10 minutes ago, it was noon, right? Because now getting bigger, that means now that it's now. So you could say, oh, it's the zenith when the sun is its highest point. But also you can say it's the zenith when the shadow is at its shortest possible length, right? Now, I'm in the southern hemisphere. When the sun was pointing, when that shadow was its shortest possible point, which direction is the shadow facing? I'm in the southern hemisphere, and there's a shadow at the shortest possible point. Which direction is that shadow facing?
It's 0, basically. There's no shadow.
That's if I was on the equator, yeah. If I'm on the equator, the sun is directly above me. Or again, certain times of the year, right? You'll find certain things. But like on the equator line itself, right? The sun is directly above me. There is 0 shadow. There, like the object has no shadow. I mean, the shadow is directly underneath it. But I'm not on the equator. So I am
Right.
south of the equator. Okay. So
Okay.
therefore
Then it's
the sun is always to my what direction then? If I'm to the south of the equator, the sun is always to my
South.
It's always to my
the sun or the
north.
shadow, Sheikh? Sorry, just make
Yeah.
sure.
The sun.
Sorry.
If I'm in the southern hemisphere, right,
Mhm.
the sun is always going to be to my north, right?
Yeah.
In the northern hemisphere, the sun is always going to be to your south, right?
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is it's going to rise in the east, right? And that east vector, whatever is how you want to work it out, it reduces, and then the sun is now at its shortest final point, and at this point, the sun is as short as possible. It is now facing due. The shadow is going to be, so the sun is now due south of me, so I know where south is, and the shadow is doing a line pointing due due south. Yeah. So the shadow's to my north, and the shadow is going to come to that object, and it's going to be pointing directly south, right?
Yes.
In the northern hemisphere at noon, the shadow is going to be pointing directly north, right? So without a compass, without your iPhone, you just sit there, right? Kicking stones, kicking rocks, as they say in America, right? And you're like, okay, when's noon? Like, I don't know. You're like, where's my app? My phone's died. Okay, nobody's here. Well, how am I supposed to find out? So we'll just watch the shadow. You watch the shadow get shorter, 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 shorter. Now I know two things. I know where north and south is, and I know when three things actually. I know when north and south is. That's number one. Where north and south is. And that's number one. I know when dhuhr. I know when the zenith is. And I also know a third piece of information, which is also going to be useful when I come to Asr, which is I know the length of the shortest shadow. So here was my 4-foot stick stuck in the ground. It was bolt upright. Okay. And what was I going to say? And I've been watching this shadow for like 3 hours. Every hour, I just keep looking at it now and then and putting a stone next to it. As we speak, there are two pigeons just staring at me. My son's too big. There's something very eerie about pigeons and what it is. They're like just staring at me like, is he gonna die? Can we eat him? Something like that. I don't know what they want from me. Like they have food. I don't know what they want. Anyway, so anyway, you're just watching the shadow. It's got shorter and shorter, shorter. It's now at its shortest point. That means this is noon. So this is my solar noon, right? Not noon is in 12 o'clock, but this is noon is in my solar noon on my geographical point. In a second, it's going to be dhuhr. I now know where north and south is. And I also know how short that shadow was. So I'm looking, the shadow, my stick was 4 foot and the shadow was 1 foot. It's like, okay, note that down. So there's 4 pieces of information that, yeah, these are getting really close to me. So maybe it could be like a spy. Who knows? You know, those spy pigeons. Who knows? Anyway, so that's what you've learned now. Okay. Now, as soon as you see that the shadow has now increased, it's now dhuhr. Okay, it's now dhuhr. So that increase is indicative of dhuhr, right? It was getting shorter and shorter, 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 and you're watching. It's kind of hard to tell, right? Right? It's kind of hard to tell. Because it's going to be slow, and then you're going to realize, okay, this is it, right? So now you know your qibla as well, because if you know north and south, now you know your qibla, right? So there's lots of things you can work out. So we have to understand and appreciate how stupid we are. Like, we are like our brains are like people. Like imagine, for example, like there's this really handsome buff guy, okay, and then he goes into his room and takes off all these shoulder pads and arm pads and everything. It's like has no muscles, right? And then he doesn't even have legs. His legs don't actually move. It's just kind of an app, right? And then takes off his mask. He's not even handsome. It's like, what happened? Like, what happened to you? So that's what we are with our brains. Like we use calculators. We don't use arithmetic. When you go into these shops, like these guys just don't know everything, like just because they're using arithmetic all the time, right? We don't use calculator. We're always on our phone. We can't communicate. We're socially awkward. We don't know anything about anything because we're just not connected. There's actually lots of things you can know and lots of things you can work out. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't need to be this kind of artificial person. You can just like work out a lot of things like, yeah, A, B, C. You can work out where you are. You can work out a million things, right? I have again, people with less kids, what's it called? There's this book about this funny monkey. What's it called? Like this monkey that's always causing trouble. What's it called? Can't remember his name.
Curious
Curious
George.
George.
Curious George. So the author of Curious George, right, is actually a serious person in reality, and he wrote this book on for the UK, what a British Army, to just look at to navigate with stars. So I have the book. It's really cool. Like, okay, you're flying this this airplane at night in World War II, and okay, roughly where are you? Like, I'm seeing this, 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 this. I am somewhere in Eastern Europe because look, I'm seeing this and this. Like, this is the time of day I'm seeing this. This is the kind of life that people used to live, right? They're like, oh, oh, it's like this, the wind's like this is going to happen next. And people kind of like aware and awake, right? Now we're kind of like really stupid. Like, you just not really aware. Like, we understand things, but we don't understand things, right? So like, even for example, you say like a computer, like, do you know anybody who actually understands a computer from A to B, like every single stage? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of people could code, a lot of people can use computers, a lot of people can program, a lot of people can do quite advanced things, but they don't actually understand what's happening, from the whole, like you say, hey, I'm going to give you a country. I want you to build and like set up the motherboard of a computer, in wires, with semiconductors. I don't think a lot of people couldn't do that. I think the number of people who could actually do that are very, very few. So what it means is like there's fundamental gaps in knowledge. Like, you don't actually understand what you're talking about. Does that make sense? So you can manipulate things, but you don't know what the things are. Does that make sense? So it's quite important when you start to like realize, man, people in the past are pretty intelligent, and we're kind of just dumb. And we're like this person who's like, we live with lots of scaffolding, but we don't actually have anything, right? So khair. Anyway, so now I know where the Qibla is, I know where Dhuhr is, and I know when Asr is, because Dhuhr is going to end when?
When the length of the shadow is equal to the object, or the stick, or the stone.
With in addition to its length at the zenith. Okay. So
Right.
I am about an hour away from the zenith right now. Right here it's 12 o'clock, at 1 o'clock approximately. About 1 o'clock is going to be solar noon here in Kuala Lumpur, right? So I'm looking at the shadow of my house. It's getting pretty small. The shadows are quite small. There's a wall that's about 7 foot. Like, its shadow right now is, number one, it's not straight, but its shadow is not very big at all. Its shadow is like 3 foot or 2 foot, right? So I'm gonna watch that shadow a little bit more, okay? And I'm gonna add that. I'm gonna say the height of the wall plus the length, what's it called? Plus the length of the shadow at as it was at the zenith. Okay, so here's a 7 foot wall. The shadow at the zenith is a foot and a half. So when the shadow is, what would you say, 8.5 foot, that is the end. That's the end of Dhuhr and the beginning of Asr. Okay, make sense?
Yes, Sheikh.
Okay, so who here is into trigonometry? I know Musa does trigonometry at night, just for fun.
I used to be into it back in my day.
Okay, so I want you to think about what I just said. Okay, I want you to think about how you can imagine working out Dhuhr on the equator. Okay, imagine working out in the tropics, like I'm in the tropics, right? You're not very far away from the equator. Imagine working out Dhuhr in Calgary, right? Or I don't know what's further north than Calgary. I don't know, or on Greenland. Think about the adjustments you're going to have to make, right? And think about the equation that I just gave you. We said it was the length of the shadow at noon plus the height of the object. right? I don't want to talk about it now because it's not interesting to most people, but right. There is a mathematical inconsistency in what we just described. Okay, and this therefore a particular reason I'll explain next week. So anybody who's into it into trigonometry, think about it, right? Think about it, and why is it off, right? If you could imagine compensating from like I'm on the equatorial line right now, like the sun is directly above me. My shadow at noon is 0, right? But and so what am I measuring? When I look at the shadow, what am I actually measuring? Okay, think about what you're actually measuring, right? And think about how you compensate it and think, does that even make sense mathematically? Okay, because what we're looking at is the length of the shadow at noon plus the length of the object itself. Okay, so just think about that for next week. Hey, so anyway, I've done that now. My 4-foot stick was in the ground. Its shadow was 4 foot plus the length of the shadow at noon. The what's it called? The wall was there. It was 7 foot. I looked at the shadow at noon and it was 1 foot, so I'd have to wait till it's 8 foot, etc. That's what we're going to be doing, right? And then it's so that's the last second of Dhuhr. That plus 1 over infinity, tiny bit more over that equals Asr. It's now Asr. Okay, Asr time begins when the object's shadow equals its length in addition to the length of its shadow at the time of Zawal, of the zenith, right? And ends when the sun sets. So the actual word Zawal, we use it for Zawal, but Zawal is reality, is Zala, means to pass. So Zawal is like the first instant after the zenith. And because, did you know the word zenith is actually Arabic? All right, zenith is actually Arabic. It's from the word semt. Okay, and so when you in astro, when you're in space, the word zenith is used in a slightly different way, right? In astronautics, when you're in space, you have your zenith, which is the line. So you draw a line through the center of the Earth to you and point it out into space. That's called the zenith. Okay, and the line going back towards you to the center of the Earth is called the nadir. Both of these words are Arabic. One is called the samt and the other one's called the nadir, right? And so, surprise, surprise, Muslims, obviously we're just generally involved in academia, but also specifically into, okay, now I'm being attacked by a rabbit. And he's showing me that he's marking the territory that it's his territory, so I better leave. Right? So guys, if you hear reports of a 3-4-month-old rabbit trying to kill me, then there we go. He's given me the warning. Okay. So anyway, so the Arabs, they were really into the world in general. They were into education and science in general. So that's why, particularly if you look at astronomy is like, you look at the star things in the sky and like, oh, this is El this and El that and Ad-Dabaran and this and that. Betelgeuse, right? It's called Yed al-Jawza. They changed the word Yed to Bed, it became Betelgeuse, but it's Yed al-Jawza. And they have all these things, and it's quite an important thing. It's a common thing that they would talk about, right? So in fiqh books, they'd be like, oh yeah, this and that. In poetry, they're talking about it all the time. Like, oh, when this star was aligned with that star. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, you haven't seen my orangutans yet. I'm in Malaysia, right? We've got real orangutans, right? Somehow orangutans were born of 2 humans. Like, go figure, right? So alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Okay. What we're talking about. So anyway, so it's important to kind of be aware of these things. Okay, so Zawal, so there's the Samt and then the Zawal. Zawal in reality is a split second after Samt, because it's the you draw a line between you, the center of the Earth, and the sun. That's called the Samt. That's called the zenith, right? And then then Zala, it passes. It goes a little bit forward. That's now Zawal in reality. Okay, so the shadow at Zawal. And it ends at sunset. Okay, so when the sun is fully gone beyond the horizon, right? When the sun has fully gone beyond the horizon, this is when this is the end of This is the end of Asr. So it's still Asr time. As the sun is setting, it is still Asr time. Okay? In contradistinction to Fajr, as soon as with the sunrise, as soon as a part of the sun comes over the horizon, okay, as soon as a part of the sun has gone over the horizon, it is now the end of Fajr. Okay, so now that's Asr, and then Maghrib continues. So it said, and then time of Maghrib begins at sunset and ends with the disappearance of the red of the horizon. So you're at the beach looking at a beautiful sunset, right? And you know, you see this red on the horizon. Above the red is some orange, above the orange is some yellow. Above the you keep looking higher and higher, and that kind of goes into like this kind of funny like light blue line. And then you start looking up, you turn your back to the sun, and it gets kind of, there's this funny merge of kind of like light and dark, and then it becomes dark. And that darkness spreads over, okay, as the sun goes further and further below the horizon. And the first thing that disappears is the red, and then the orange, and then the yellow, and then the little line disappears, and now it's dark. When it is dark on the horizon, in astronomy, we call that astronomical twilight. Sorry, that is the end of astronomical twilight and the beginning of the astronomical night. Okay, so there's a good website I like to use, which is called timeanddate.com, and it has all these kind of things like, you know, where new moon, new this, where's that, where's the sun going to rise, what's happening, all these different things. It's quite cool, and it will give you these different things. So there's something called astronomical twilight, which is between sunset and that point, and there's something called civil twilight, which is something to do with like legality, like there's enough light outside for you to be able to have people work without whatever. So I don't know what exactly it is. Sorry, here's the problem of having multiple animals all together. So there's the ducks, the ducklings, and the chickens. They can just about eat the same food, but the rabbits are not supposed to be eating the chicken's food. It's not good for them. So we have a problem. We need law and order. We need a sheriff, Musa, if you're ready to come and bring law and order to this what is it? What's it called? Wild West. This is like the Wild West, yeah. A little bit crazy. Anyway, so we have something called civil twilight, we have something called astronomical twilight, and then I think naval twilight. So there's these three kind of things that you'll see, right? So at 18 degrees, when the sun is 18 degrees behind the horizon, the sun is such that there's no rays of it are spreading at all, and it is totally black. Okay, that is Isha for the Hanafis. That's Hanafi Isha. So the Hanafi Isha is very astronomically calculable. Okay, it's like 18 degrees. Okay, that's the position at least of Imam Abu Hanifa. And that's also the position of Imam Muzani. The issue is that the Jumhur, the majority of scholars, the Shafi'is and the Malikis and the Hanbalis, and I believe the Sahibain, at least Imam Muhammad, if not the Sahibain, meaning the two students of Imam Abu Hanifa, they say no. When the red disappears, it is Isha. Here's the problem on an astronomical level. Why is it that when you go on a website like that, they don't say, oh, the red has disappeared? You know, ask ChatGPT if anybody has ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. Like when will the red of the horizon disappear? It's not going to be a very clear answer. My stepdad, he's kind of like a amateur astronomer. I asked him about it. I said, like, how would you work that out? He said, it's going to be totally different wherever you are. It's not going to be a standard degree. So we're 18 degrees, basically across the world, there should be no light on the horizon. But with the red disappearing, that will be affected by heat, dust, humidity, season, you know, where you are on the globe. It's going to vary. So now here's this problem with the calculators. It's like when you just put in a degree, they say 15 degrees, right? So here's just your app in your masjid that you have on your phone. Like, okay, 15 degrees, there we go. It's not really accurate, because what the Sharia has given us is when the red of the horizon disappears. That's what the Sharia has given us. We've now translated that into something that is astronomically inconsistent. Does that make sense? It's like iddah. Like, how long does an iddah last? Well, the iddah lasts is 3 periods. Well, when does a period happen? Well, I don't know. Maybe she can have a period, maybe she can have a period a year, you know? So you're like, yeah, but how many months? How long? Like he wants to, like, here's a businessman. Like, dude, just give me the fatwa. I just want to know how much to pay her. I can pay her in advance now. I want to give her a check. That's it. Khalas. It's like, Habibi, it's not like that. When she finishes 3 periods, her idda's over. I don't know when that's going to happen. Maybe super irregular. I don't know. So that's what we're dealing with. Dealing with something that is, it is not unknown to us. It is when the red of the sky disappears. That is when Maghrib ends and Isha begins. But when is that exactly? And this is particularly important for those of us, for example, who are in North America, and our local Hanafi masjids are going to say, oh, we're just going to follow the Sahibain, we're going to follow the Shafis because Isha is too late. So that's fine. But when is that? What do you mean by the red has disappeared? It's much easier to say when the white disappears because that's 18 degrees, generally speaking, right? But when you talk about the red of the, you can't just say, oh, it's 15 degrees and just say it's like that. You have to go and do some research. Say, yes, for example, over the last 6 years, we've been researching at different times of the year, and we've noticed it's between this angle and this angle. So therefore, we're going to go for example, the biggest angle, and khalas, that's definitely Isha. Something like that. Does that make sense? Like where I was in the Bay Area in California, there were shuyukh who had spent time looking on the horizon in California and saying, when does Fajr come in? And they've said it's not, for example, 18 degrees. It was sometimes things like 17 degrees. So 18 degrees is too early, right? That's not Fajr. So you just going off with a number because the uncle in the masjid put an angle in the app, and his friend who works in whatever software did the thing. It's like, great, but that's not very accurate. Does that make sense?
Yes, Sheikh.
Okay, jazakallah. So I'm cognizant of the fact that it might be midnight for some of you. And as exciting as my bunnies and rabbits and ducklings may be, sleep is sometimes more important. So we'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala, and we will come, inshallah, we will resume from here. And inshallah, who was it? Who was talking was Ubaid, inshallah. I want you to think about the thing for next week, inshallah. Go ahead, Faisal. So everyone's free to go. Go ahead, Faisal.
Alaikum Sheikh. Just a question out of curiosity. How
Yes.
did I guess the fuqaha of the past sort of remedy like issues when it comes to weather, right? It seems like